Hello, everyone. Uh, this is going to be the first part of 8 Million Gods by Wen Spencer. Hope you enjoy. Chapter 1 Bounce. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is escape your powerful control freak mother. Nikki whispered to the mirror hung on the back of the apartment's door. Miss Delaney, the policeman said on the other side of the door, I have a court order for your commitment to a psychiatric center for evaluation. Please open the door. Considering Nikki was in a flannel Hello Kitty sleeping shirt, her hair looked like a rat's nest, and her roommate's fox terriers were barking up a storm, escaping was truly going to be mission impossible. Taking off nearly naked was not an option. She was going to have to be clever. She grabbed a hair tie from the hall closet doorknob and stalled as she fought with her long blonde hair. Under the New York State Mental Hygiene Law, Article 9, Hospitalization of the mentally ill, I have the right to appropriate personal clothing and safe storage of personal property. Do you understand my rights? For some weird reason, quoting the law to some policemen was like hitting Superman with kryptonite. They just couldn't cope with material from their home planet. She totally lucked out. There was complete silence from the other side of the door. Score. She did a mad leap around the tiny living room that currently doubled as her bedroom, snatching up clothing. Bra, sweater, blue jeans. She dashed back to the door, dropped the clothes on the floor, and stripped quickly. Over Yip and Yap, she could hear her mother arguing with the policeman, probably telling him to grow a pair of balls and just break down the door. It was a really good thing that the officer was waffling before he even got in the door. Please, miss, open the door. I'm going to have to break it down. Nikki had learned young that escalation to force was a bad thing. It led to restraints. She taught herself how to escape a straitjacket, but it involved dislocating a shoulder. She really wanted to avoid that if possible. Opening the door while nude, however, would be very bad. Okay, okay, she cried to give herself more time. There's lots of locks and they sticks, so be patient. Luckily, like any good New York City apartment, the door did have multiple locks. She fumbled loudly with them between yanking on pieces of clothing. Of course, her bra ended up inside out, but she couldn't just suffer. At least the sweater pulled on without a problem. The jeans attempted to be an octopus of alternating reverse and right side out legs. Panic was starting to set in, which would be very bad. While she wasn't dangerously insane like her mother would like the legal system to believe, to the casual observer, her hypergraphia certainly made her seem crazy. If she didn't have a pen and paper in hand, her compulsion would make her write on walls of anything available. Time to go to her happy place. She took a deep breath and imagined ocean waves against white sand, wind through palm trees, colorful drinks with paper umbrellas. Miss Delaney! The officer knocked again. I'm opening the door. She hopped in the foyer, tugging on the jeans one leg at a time. This last lock is sticking. She gave the top lock a half twist, spun her zines, and looked in the mirror. A Ford model at fashion shoot she wasn't, but she passed as a normal, sane co-ed about to head out to class. As always, she whispered, this message will self-destruct in 5 minutes. Cue the Mission Impossible theme music. She jerked open the door. The policeman seemed impossibly young, although that could be because he was only about 5'6". The clean-shaved, buzz-cut, and wise eyes did not help either, effectively rendering him about 12 years old in appearance. His badge name identified him as H. Russell. Behind him, her mother was trying to gracefully shove him aside. Officer Russell! Nikki backed away from the door for Sheila's bedroom as fast as she could, hands in plain sight. She still needed something on her feet, her wallet something warm, since it was freezing cold for early May. I need a minute to get shoes on and gather my things. Yip and Yap decided that her coming down the hallway meant they were getting out of their crate and fell silent. Nikki, I don't have time for you to get your things. Her mother was in full Queen Warrior Senator mode in a black Channel business shirt, suit, and more diamonds than some African nations, and Prada 3-inch heels. I've got a limo outside. Just put on some slippers and come quietly. Nikki locked down on the first 10 things that wanted out. She focused on the policeman instead. Look, Officer Russell, I'm cooperating. I'm sane. You can just stand there and be embarrassed for me. Let me pack one pack of clothes, she pleaded aloud. I'm crashing here. My name isn't on the lease. If I just walk out, my roommate doesn't have to let anyone back in to collect my stuff. The truth was, she didn't truly own anything. Somewhere far back in her childhood, she had a faint memory of having a bedroom of things that were hers and hers alone, an entire room full of privacy. Currently, everything hers was actually stuff she permanently borrowed off her roommate Sheila. I will buy you new stuff. Her mother closed fast, her heels clicking menacingly on the hardwood floor. They hit the bedroom at the same time, and Yip and Yap went ballistic at the sight of a new person to play with. Instantly, Nicky was alone in the room. The fox terriers were the main reason she was crashing with Sheila instead of other friends. Her mother was terrified of dogs. She wanted every advantage she could use against her mother, just in case of days like this. Nicky hurriedly yanked open her drawer in Sheila's dresser and grabbed her wallet and passport. A quick check confirmed her wallet had everything she needed to start life over. Again. Next time in Japan. That had been her plan since she was 15, only she wasn't supposed to leave for 6 months. This wouldn't be the first time, though, that her mother had screwed up her plans. Nicky shoved her wallet and passport in her jeans back pocket and grabbed a pair of socks. Officer Russell appeared in the door as she sat on Sheila's bed to put on her shoes. Sheila's perfume still hung in the air, making Nicky aware that she was about to vanish out of her roommate's life without a decent goodbye. So fucking unfair. Fair or not, it was what she had to work with. How was she going to get out of this? She pulled on her running shoes. She needed time to think, so she grabbed Sheila's gym bag and made a show of stuffing clothing into it. Yip and Yap would make sure that her mother stayed as far as possible from the bedroom, but Officer Russell was firmly attached in the doorway. "This is for your own good," her mother called from the living room, nearly shouting to be heard over the barking. "You're not stable enough to live alone." Nicky breathed out a laugh. This was going to be one of those conversations where the whole point was to influence the interloper, not the person actually addressed. Her mother realized that Officer Russell was the main thing blocking Nicky now, and was trying to shift him to her mother's side. Nicky hadn't been totally aware of winning him over, but trusted her mother's judgment. "I don't live alone," Nicky pointed out to both her mother and Officer Russell. "I have a roommate. She posts homosexual erotica on the internet," her mother countered. "Some of it involves underage boys." Nicky's heart leapt slightly in fear. "You did a background check on Sheila? My teenage daughter disappears to go live with a complete stranger she met on the internet. Yes, I had a background check done on the woman." "I turned 20 last month, mother." Nicky picked up her lip balm and used it on her lips one last time, her hypergraphia begging her to scribble an entire random string onto the dresser mirror. She controlled the urge and only wrote "bounce" onto the glass. There. This time she let her roommate know that she hadn't been murdered in a back alley. Poor Julie had actually reported her missing before the FBI let her know that Nicky had been involuntarily committed to a mental hospital. And wasn't that fun to escape from? Did her mother know about her plans to flee to Japan? The biggest problem with her plan was how easy it was for a senator to track a U.S. citizen via passport, provided, of course, they knew to look. Up to now, Nicky had been careful not to cross any borders. She used a spy level of caution in getting a copy of her birth certificate and applying for her passport. She'd researched methods of getting out of the country quietly and how movements of citizens were reported. If her mother didn't have her flagged, then she could hopscotch to Japan. If she did, Nicky closed her eyes, breathed deep. Happy place. A desert island, far away from her mother, away from the closed-in spaces of a mental hospital. Nicky, a laptop, internet connection, and nothing but white sand, shifting shadows, and the tassel of sun off the ocean. "Are you okay, Officer Okay?" Officer Russell stepped closer, and Yip and Yap howled their disappointment that the second new person wasn't letting them out of their crate. Nicky nodded, opening her eyes. "Just trying to remember if I forgot anything. Like getting out of this apartment a free woman." Still, she needed to find out first what her mother knew. She made a show of opening doors and going through the contents. "Sheila writes stories based on Twilight," Nicky called out to her mother. "You know, vampires and werewolves. They're not real people. It's called fan fiction, and it's all on a password-protected forum. You have to register a valid email account and verify you're over 18 to read the stories." And you think this makes this a secure site? She knew it didn't. The question was, in digging through Sheila's private websites, did her mother's people find Nikki's? Did it matter? If Sheila broadcasted Nikki's bounce command, everything would be abandoned and everyone moved to the new site. Nikki took a deep breath and tightened her hands against taking out the lip balm and this time writing on the walls. Fighting with her mother would get her into more trouble. She needed to run, not stand and try to win. This argument she had no hope of winning. She never won. Right now, she needed to be clever and quick. There was a fire escape outside the window. She had tested it out once. The open steel work triggered her mild fear of heights. She could get a head start. She could be to a subway station before Officer Russell caught her. She needed him out of the room. Here, she pushed the gym bag into his hands. Oh, my pills. Can you grab them from the medicine cabinet? She pointed toward the bathroom and scooped up coins from the dresser top. The one time she attended high school, she lived in dorms. There was a prank that involved heavy door rooms and coins. She never tried it out on the apartment doors. Pills? Officer Russell's eyes went a little wider. Medicine, medical patient. I know you guys are all a little jumpy about mixing the two. My birth control's in the medicine cabinet with some of my roommate's prescriptions. Yeah. She followed him across the hall. Birth control? Her mother cried from the living room, as far as possible from the dogs as she could get while staying within supervision range of the bathroom. Trust me, Nikki said. None of us want you to be a grandmother. Officer Russell snickered and opened up the crowded cabinet. Whoa, it's in the back, she said unhelpfully, pulling shut the door, and pushed coins into the space between the wood and the jamb. Hey! Officer Russell yelled as he found the door wedged shut tight. Nikki! Her mother shouted. 3 steps, and Nikki was in Sheila's bedroom. She hit the latch on the dog kennel even as her mother cried, You stupid idiot! I told you she was dangerous! Yip and Yap came bounding out, nearly levitating with their excitement. They ignored Nikki. She was familiar, and thus boring. Barking madly, they charged toward the living room. Nikki slammed shut the bedroom door and flicked the lock. 2 more steps and she was to the window, and then out onto the fire escape. Nikki's heart lurched as she forced herself out into the steel catwalk and then down the rickety ladder. She couldn't let her fear of heights slow her down. She hit the street and started to run. She didn't stop running until she was in Japan. Chapter 2. The OMG Baseball Bat. She was living in Japan. Osaka, Japan to be exact. 2 months, and it still startled her in a way she found weirdly uncomfortable. She'd moved dozens of times before in the States, from suburban mental hospitals to a dormitory at a private high school in the middle of nowhere, to walk-up apartments in gritty inner-city neighborhoods. Never before had she constantly felt like she was being hit in the head with a baseball bat labeled OMG. Some days it seemed like everything triggered the feeling. Waking up lying on a futon on the floor, whack! Going pee at a public restroom by squatting over a ceramic trough, whack! Wandering up and down the levels of a bookstore with thousands of interesting-looking books without being able to read a single word, whack! Walking through an entire shopping district surrounded by people and unable to guess or to even ask where to buy a basic cooking knife, whack! One minute she would be steaming along, enjoying the adventure of living on her own, and then the OMG baseball bat of cultural shock would catch her smack between the eyes. By lunchtime, she was slightly punch-drunk by the number of hits she'd taken. The only reason she didn't suggest a meeting at KFC or McDonald's was somehow the combination of familiar and uniquely Japan that the 2 food chains represented would have been more unsettling than the little hole-in-the-wall traditional okonomiyaki shop. At least the act of taking off her sandals in the restaurant foyer, putting them in one of the many cubbyholes, bowing to the waitress, and stepping down to the sitting room around a grill-topped table, was now comfortingly familiar despite being totally foreign. Nikki waved off the menu that the waitress was trying to offer her. Sumimasen. Nikki tried to remember the Japanese word for the menu. English. Ah! The waitress smiled as she realized what Nikki was asking for. English menu. Hi, 1 minute. The waitress disappeared into the possibly small kitchen, hidden behind a half wall where a cook was already standing. Her best friend, Mary Freeman, laughed in greeting. One of those kind of days? God, yes. Nikki tossed her backpack onto the seat beside her. There are days I could just kill my mother. All this would be easier if I'd been able to stick to our plan and learn Japanese. Nikki had met Miriam the only time she attended normal high school. That you could really call Foxcroft normal, as it was an expensive private boarding school. Miriam had always had a fascination for all things Japanese. Nikki just wanted to have half the planet between her and her mother. She and Miriam had come up with the detailed plan that would have both of them fluent in Japanese, employed by the same company, and sharing an apartment together. Her mother, though, had yanked Nikki out of school in her senior year and ruined every later attempt to keep the plan. Miriam tilted her head and squinted in deep thought. Her bright pink-dyed hair gathered in quirky pigtails, and her high school outfit were both part of her battle with all things Japanese. She confessed that she had come to the conclusion that as a gaijin, an outsider, she never fully fit in, so she had decided to stand out. Nikki would never have the courage to dye her hair or wear anything as short as Miriam's miniskirt, but Miriam was fearless. Nah, I think you'd still be reeling even if you learned Japanese first. I felt the same way for my first 6 months. Really? The toilets alone break all language barriers when it comes to cultural shock. She slid her glass slightly closer to Nikki's side. A stiff drink does help. Nikki snorted. I'm actually tempted. Much as the drug addiction scares the willies out of me, knowing that someone like Valium would make it seem better for a while. Mimi grabbed the glass back to her side of the table. My bad, sorry. The waitress came back with a sketchily translated menu and slightly better phrased, what do you want? They picked their economy toppings. Nikki pointed to her selection on the English menu, and Miriam ordering from the Japanese one. Nikki tentatively added her drink order. Masu? The word caught a muffled giggle from Miriam and a blank stare from the waitress. From behind the hand covering her mouth, Miriam murmured, water is mizu. Nikki winced, wondering what she'd actually said to the waitress. Hopefully nothing obscene. Mizu kudasai. Kudasasi. The waitress smiled. Ah, yes, water. Mizu, mizu. Nikki repeated softly after the waitress left. Miriam might be right, and being fluent might not stop the cultural shock, but she was tired of being clueless with what was being said around her. Her whole life had been a series of complete helpless, and her mother's mercy are heavily dependent on the kindness of friends. The plan was for them to live together, but Miriam was totally locked into a lease for another 4 months at a place where she could have a roommate. For the first time, Nikki was living alone, buying her own clothes, and cooking her own food. She loved being independent, but this constantly being lost and confused. The moment she ventured out of her apartment was frustrating the hell out of her. The waitress returned with the drinks and the two mixing bowls with the ingredients for the okonomiyaki. They watched as the waitress mixed up the batter and poured it onto the hot grill. She used a large steel spatula to round the batter with a thick pancake. Why okonomiyaki was considered Japanese pizza still mystified Nikki. It was shredded cabbage mixed with flour and topped with barbecue sauce and mayonnaise. The only similarity was that it was circular and came with countless toppings. Personally, she thought of them as very weird pancakes. She discovered early on that the shrimp came with the head still attached, and she didn't quite deal with having her dinner stare at her with accusing eyes. The only thing that slightly creeped her out was the fact that the shaved bonito on top wriggled as if still alive. Once the waitress had both pizzas in place, she motioned that they weren't to fiddle with the dough with the two little spatulas in the lieu of forks and spoons. Ah, don't touch. The soji-style front door slid open, triggering a call of "Irahasami, Irasu ha haimasi" from the two employees. The new customer was one of the impossibly slender salarymen, looking like he'd only weigh over 100 pounds if you dipped him and his two-piece suit in one of Okinawa's many waterways. It still freaked Nikki out that, at 5'3", she could look down at a goodly number of the Japanese men, the newest customer included. He took off his shoes and tucked them into a cubby hole next to her sandals as the waitress hurried across the 20 feet between the kitchen and the foyer to greet him properly. Waitress bowed, salaryman bowed back. It was like watching an anime come to life, a good happy moment that Nikki desperately needed at this point. The salaryman was installed in the booth beside theirs, and the grill top of his table fired up to get ready for cooking. "So?" Miriam nudged Nikki at her stocking-clad foot. "Who's dead?" "Hmm?" Nikki studied the salaryman in the guise of cleaning her hands with a wet wipe. He was thin and delicate like a sparrow. She couldn't tell how old he was so tiny he seemed like he should only be 13, but most likely he was a college graduate in his 20s. Certainly he made many manga storylines about boys passing as girls more believable. Miriam nudged her hand, forcing Nikki to give up her study of the salaryman. "You're wearing your shirt of mourning. You only wear that after you kill someone who's dead." Nikki tented out her goth Lolita shirt. It was the most beautiful thing she ever owned. All black silk with long sleeves and lace everywhere. She bought it to cheer herself up after the Brit vanished out of her novel. "Did she really only wear it after a murder? I blogged it. Didn't you read it?" Miriam covered her mouth as she yawned. "I had a nomi kai Friday night. God, only the Japanese would require employees to get hammered together on a regular basis. I spent most of yesterday in zombie mode. I did see your blog on doing laundry, but nothing on you killing someone off. I posted the murder later. Who did you kill?" "The expatriate George Wilson," Nikki told her glumly. "The idiot pervert." Miriam laughed. "What's that make it? The real love interest you kill before even getting to the sex? You have to stop killing people." "I've tried. I can't stop myself. One minute George is drinking sake in his Umadea apartment getting ready to go out, and the next he's taking an $800 Blend Tech blender to the guts." "A blender?" "Yeah, ever notice how sharp the blades are on a blender?" I broke the glass couch container against George's head and set the blender on puree. Nikki made the sound of braids spinning and twirled her index finger in a tight circle. Blood all over the white countertop. "Cool, I approve." Nikki laughed. "I thought you would. The color contrast was stunning." "Where did you get the blender?" Miriam pointed out the only thing that really worried Nikki about the murder. "I think he brought it from the United States. Does it really matter? It's not like it's a sword or a firearm." It still geeked her out that the Japanese had more laws controlling swords than guns. The waitress turned to flip over their pancakes. They were nice and golden on the cooked side. As Miriam asked the waitress something in Japanese, Nikki realized that the worker was staring at her in utter horror. Oops! It was something she kept forgetting. Since English was taught in Japanese school from first grade up, Japanese people normally understood a lot more English than she understood Japanese. She played back that conversation and winced. How was she going to explain? "I didn't really kill anyone. I'm a writer." What was that what the Japanese called authors? "I write books, novels. Miriam, help." Miriam laughed and said something that made the man bolt from the booth, grab his shoes, and run still in his stocking feet out of the store. "What did you say?" Nikki cried. "I told him you don't kill nice little Uki like him, only big pets. Miriam, I don't kill people, real people." The waitress returned the salaryman's drink order and eyed the empty booth with confusion. "Ixnay the underme," Nikki said. "I don't want a burned okonomiyaki." Miriam smiled innocently. You could just delete the scene. George had real promise as a hero. Rich, handsome, alive." "No, I couldn't," Nikki grumbled. "You know that. George is now dead to my hypergraphia. When the characters are alive, everything just flows. All I have to do is occasionally nudge things into place with a little research on the details. Once they're dead, it's a blank page time. I don't even have time to be staring at blank pages." Besides, he was turning out to be a completely sick bastard. It had been on the sale of her first novel that allowed her to continue with the plan, despite the fact she couldn't speak the language, hadn't gone to the college, and had no work experience. Her advance on royalties arrived 2 days before her mother. It had gotten her to Japan and into an apartment, paid for a laptop and all the things she needed day to day like clothes, with enough left over for her to survive for over a year. Even better, her publishers asked her to write a second novel. Unfortunately, they wanted a book within a year's time. She needed to deliver it on time because she ran out of money shortly after her deadline. It was a race to see if she could finish writing before her funds ran out. The problem was that the novel had to meet certain standards. Because her first book was being marketed as a romantic thriller, she needed a heroine and a hero who would meet, fall in love, and survive to the end. So far, all her possible romantic leads had been killed, except the one that had mysteriously vanished in mid-sentence. But she suspected that he was dead too. "Don't worry, we'll work through it," Miriam said. "Do what you do best, and I'll fill in any missing pieces. Team Benanzi, go." Which was why Miriam was her best friend. She'd always protected Nikki and gave her hope when life went to hell. "Thanks," Nikki said. "Okay, so we need a new romantic hero. A stud muffin for your little dormouse artist." "She's not a dormouse, she's just emotionally scarred. Georgia completely freaked her out. Him and his schoolgirls and bondage fetish." The Soji door slid open, and two more salarymen in dark suits stepped into the shop. These two were tall and sturdy-looking. "Irahimasi," the waitress and the cook called, welcoming the new customers. The men scanned the shop and said something to each other as they noticed Miriam's pink ponytail, and then focused on Nikki. There was something decidedly unfriendly about their faces. One slipped off his shoes and headed for them like a very polite avenging angel. "Miriam," Nick indicated the man. "Tanaka desu," he introduced himself as Mr. Tanaka. "Make that Detective Tanaka," as he produced the police badge and flashed it. He continued talking. "What's he saying?" Nikki turned to Miriam for translation. "Oh my God, Nikki," Miriam gasped. "He's arresting you for murder." Okay, I'm going to end here for today. This book has 40 chapters, and it looks like I'm going to be doing 2 chapters just reading, so this will probably actually take 20 parts. Thanks for watching / listening. I guess it's really more listening. Bye.